Donald Trump has called for the ousting of GOP Congressman Thomas Massie ahead of a vote on the stimulus package. Democrats and Republicans in the Senate have agreed upon the terms, and now Thomas Massie wants a recorded vote, meaning people in the House will have to press yes, no, or present on this bill. And one of the biggest criticisms we're seeing from people who support Massie and Massie himself is that basically a ton of this money, a lot of the debt that the American people will accrue, is going to big bailouts, big corporations. The American people are going to see very little of this. And there are slush things for Democrats like $25 million for the JFK Performing Arts Centers. Many people are concerned that this bill negotiated by Democrats and Republicans is a really, really awful bill with way too much junk in it that is exploiting a crisis because it's the opportunity, right? Just like the Democrats, some Republicans are concerned that even Republicans have put too much junk in this bill. But Thomas Massie says he's not delaying this the same way Pelosi did by holding up the vote to demand that certain things get added to it. He's just saying everyone's got to put their name on it, basically. Well, Trump is not happy with it. And this is a tough call. I'm seeing so many people on Twitter say the bill is garbage. I stand with Thomas Massie. We shouldn't be putting this through. And I'm sitting here like, I hear you, man. It's 800 plus pages, probably full of a bunch of gunk and garbage. Are we going to get a perfect bill? Can the Democrats and Republicans actually do their job? Probably not, which is why I've said repeatedly, get them all out. I don't care. Here's the bigger problem. April 1st is coming. How many times I got to say it? And what happens when people don't have any money? This may be too little too late, so fine, whatever. Maybe this doesn't even matter because we were only 4 days away from when rent checks don't come in and the next wave of industry gets shattered in this country. So for me, I'm kind of thinking we've got a major fire burning in our country. And you've got people fighting over the water bucket for not being too big or someone splashed weird stuff in it. Some people are saying, I'll only throw this water if I get what I want. And they're fighting while everything is burning down around us. Maybe we have to pass it. Look, I understand the people who are upset with this bill and they don't want to see these, politicians start to take money from the American people, making us take on this debt, and then they get their benefits for their pet projects. Maybe there's no answer. Maybe there's none. Because one of the concerns Thomas Massie brings up is what? People get $1,200 and then there's trillions of dollars going to other garbage. It doesn't make sense. But I don't know. I think, industries need money too. But let's read this first story. And then Thomas Massie has responded. By the time you watch this, maybe it will be passed. But this is breaking and very important news right now. Politico reports. President Donald Trump on Friday called for ousting from the Republican Party a GOP congressman who has signaled that he could hold up an impending House vote on the Senate's $2 trillion coronavirus emergency relief package. Looks like a third-rate grandstander named Rep. Thomas Massie, a congressman from unfortunately a truly great state, Kentucky, wants to vote against the new Save Our Workers bill in Congress, Trump wrote on Twitter. I don't think that's what Massie is saying. He put out an official statement saying he wants a recorded vote. What Pelosi wanted to do was just have everyone say yay or nay, and then she would just simply go, or aye. The ayes have it and bang the gavel, instead of actually going through each individual, having them press that button. Massie wants people to put their name on this. That could obstruct the bill, because there are some people who might not want to actually vote on it. There are many people who would probably say nay, and they would give it to the ayes anyway. But now that he's calling for a recorded vote, we very well may see somebody votes no. And this bill may not pass. I honestly don't know, but let's read a little bit more. House Republican leadership has been concerned that Rep. Thomas Massie will move to demand a recorded tally as opposed to a voice vote on the historic stimulus measure, throwing a last-minute hurdle into the legislation's path to the president's desk. The threat has forced dozens, if not hundreds of lawmakers to return to Washington from their home districts, navigating across interstates and through airports at a time when public health officials have urged Americans to avoid non-essential travel in large groups. Quote, he just wants the publicity. He can't stop it, only delay, which is both dangerous and costly, Trump tweeted. Workers and small businesses need money now in order to survive. Virus wasn't their fault. It's hell dealing with Dems. Had to give up something stupid in order to get the big picture done. 90% great. Win back the House, but throw Massie out of the Republican Party. Now, I'm not a fan of kicking people out of the party because they stand on principle. I do not believe that Massie is doing this because he wants publicity. I think he wants people to stamp their name on it. I think he might vote no but the bill might still pass. But he wants everyone to know he opposed it. Think about what's going to happen. Look, there's probably a lot of gunk in this, like I said, but we're in an emergency circumstance. I kind of don't think it's fair. Man, politics is awful, isn't it? In a few years or in a year, we're going to look back and say, how did this make it in? This is awful. This bailout sucked. Yeah, it's easy. It's easy to look back and say, why did I do that when you weren't standing next to a burning building? And there's the challenge. Yes, I definitely think politicians, both Republican and Democrat, are exploiting a crisis to get things they want. I think the Democrats held this up to inject things they want. So maybe it shouldn't pass. I don't know. But man, we don't put this fire out soon. There's not going to be anything to complain about. The economy is going to collapse. The industries are going to take a hit. But you know what? It might be too late anyway, because the people are going to miss rent, period. Cheesecake Factory. I know it's silly. Cheesecake Factory said they aren't going to pay rent, but these are malls. These are big industries. These are chain restaurants saying no rent for their landlords. And that includes security staff, groundskeepers, maintenance, administrative managers at big malls. So what happens? More people get laid off, more industries collapse, and the malls are already hurting as it is. In another message, the president sought to target Massey's status as chairman of the conservative House Second Amendment Caucus, writing, by empowering the radical left Democrats, do-nothing Kentucky politician Thomas Massie is making their war on the Second Amendment more and more difficult to win. But don't worry, we'll win anyway, he says. He is a disaster for America and for the great state of Kentucky. Massie reached out to Trump, but it is not clear whether they connected, according to two sources. They say Politico says they previously reported that House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, House Minority Whip Steve Scalise had been in contact with Massie, and that the White House was aware of the potential obstacle he posed to the package's final passage. Nancy Pelosi announced on Thursday that the House would vote Friday on the legislation, sending lawmakers scrambling back to the Capitol after they were previously told they would have at least 24 hours notice if they needed to return. Take a look at what Thomas Massie has said. I'm going to show you what he said. In an 11 tweet message, he said, I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, and I take that oath seriously. In a few moments, I will request a vote on the CARES Act, which means members of Congress will vote on it by pushing yes, no, or present. The Constitution requires that a quorum of members be present to conduct business in the House. Right now, millions of essential working class Americans are still required to go to work during this pandemic, such as manufacturing line workers, healthcare professionals, pilots, grocery clerks, cooks, chefs, delivery drivers, auto mechanics, and janitors. Is it too much to ask that the House do its job just like the Senate did? Well, you know, he's got a good point there. I'll tell you what. I am not delaying the bill like Nancy Pelosi did last week. The bill that was worked on in the Senate late last week was much better before Speaker Pelosi showed up to destroy it and add days and days to the process. This bill should have been voted on much sooner in both the Senate and the House, and it shouldn't be stuffed full of Nancy Pelosi's pork, including $25 million for the Kennedy Center, grants to the National Endowment for Humanities and Arts, and millions more. Other measures that have no direct relation to the coronavirus pandemic, that $25 million, for example, should go directly to purchasing test kits. The number one priority of this bill should have been to expand testing availability and creation of tests. I got to say, I agree with them on this one. Look, this is going to pass. It doesn't seem like he's shutting it down like Pelosi did to inject a bunch of pork. Maybe the bill wasn't as good. Maybe it's worse now. But he's making a good point about Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats injecting garbage into this. He says it should have been the number one priority of the bill should have been to expand testing ability for the creation of tests so that every American, not just the wealthy and privileged, have access to testing. We have shut down the world's economy without adequate data. Everyone, even those with no symptoms, need immediate access to a test. This bill creates even more secrecy around a Federal Reserve that still refuses to be audited. It allows the Federal Reserve to make decisions about who gets what, how much money will print with no transparency. If getting us into $6 trillion more debt doesn't matter, then why are we not getting $350 trillion more in debt so that we can just give a check of $1 million to every person in the country? This stimulus should go straight to the people rather than being funneled through banks and corporations like this bill is doing. Now, this I kind of disagree with. $2 trillion divided by 150 million workers is about $13,333 per person. That's much more than the $1,200 per person check authorized by this bill. I could be wrong, but it's been reported across the board that furloughed workers will also be getting 4 months of guaranteed wages from the government in unemployment benefits, plus an additional $600. This is one thing that many Republicans were upset about, saying, if you're going to get your salary plus $600, then it's easier just to get, you'll benefit by being laid off. But apparently Bernie Sanders and a bunch of progressives said, oh heavens, we're going to give workers a little bit extra. So I guess that objection was negated to a certain degree. They voted to pass it. I think Massey's right on some things. I think he's wrong on other things. Corporations need money. I'm not a big fan of massive corporate power, but what do we say? Like, we're going to give money to people. Let me put it this way. If we give a ton of money to people to stimulate the economy, where are they going to spend it? Oh, I get it. They can go to the store and buy food and pay rent. That's great, the essentials. But what about any other part of the economy? And what about the employees at those establishments? These people can't go to Cheesecake Factory and they can't go to the local restaurant to buy things because they're not open. They've suspended service to a great deal. They're stuck at home. Those restaurants then can't pay their staff. This includes big business, big chains. If people can't fly, this means the airlines are in trouble. I do not like the idea of giving massive sums of money to airlines, especially if they're going to give big bonuses to their executives, which maybe they can do under this bill. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know what the answer is, buddy. So I can respect at least one aspect of this. If all that's happening is people are going to vote on it, hard vote, I kind of like it. I do. This is not, in my opinion, a hard delay like we saw with Pelosi. That's a very important point. But he is kind of holding things up a little bit. I don't think it'll be a big deal. They'll vote on it and it'll take a few minutes longer. That's not really a big deal. But then we're going to get a name of everyone who said yes, no, or present. Now, I want to reiterate, I think it's a bit unfair to put someone, even a politician, under duress and then say, aha, but you supported it. And that's what's going to happen. Look, man, the bill's probably garbage and Pelosi and Schumer wanted to inject their garbage in it. Fine, I get it. But are we really going to look back at the politicians who said my constituents are about to see their world end unless we vote on this and then blame them for it? Maybe. The Patriot Act was awful and it shouldn't have been passed. There was so much wrong with that thing. Absolute terrible trash. And it was massive and they didn't read it. But that's, a bit different. That was fear. Today, we're dealing with fear, but real economic consequences. Thomas Massie tweeted this just the other day, yesterday morning. He says $2 trillion from Congress, $4 trillion from the Fed and the Treasury, a $6 trillion stimulus. $6 trillion divided by 350 million citizens, 17,000 per citizen, times a family of 4. 68,000 per family of new stimulus debt and dollar devaluation in the stimulus. Not a good deal. I don't know how the math plays out because a lot of people seem to ignore the fact that they're going to be paying wages for 4 months. At least I've seen that reported across the board. Things are pretty confusing. I got to admit, the house is on fire. The economy, which my understanding literally means household management, is on fire. Our home is burning to the ground and people are fighting every which way. I don't know necessarily who's right or who's wrong. The only thing I can really see is that people don't understand how delicate the economy is. And as I mentioned many times, the rent thing happening, that's going to ripple out again. The landlords, the building maintenance, the plumbing, the electricians, all of the industries are tied together. We all rely on each other. And it seems like a sinkhole is forming and it's slowly pulling in more and more. Do we vote out these people in November? That's what Trump is saying. He's saying, pass it now, vote them out in November. Maybe that's the best we can do. I don't know. By the time you watch this, maybe the bill was passed. We'll see what happens. But at least now we have a general understanding why Trump is mad at this guy. And as much as I'm not, I don't normally do like these big breaking short blip kind of stories. This one's really important. So I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment will be coming up at 4 p.m. YouTube.com/Timcast. It's my main channel. And I will see you all then.